Are you ready? Can crush us. It don't really get no better than this the podcast that you're looking for if you're really heavy into wrestling. Hosted by the Mark. Energy that's so amazing. Gotta keep it entertaining. Rep the Can Crusher Nation. Yeah, you know what's going down in the ring. Lights out when you hit a ding ding. Knock 'em out like boom bada bing. Hold it down, you can crown me the king. Gotta shout out to the Miz and Duke the Dumpster. We choke slamming everybody, power driving, hit 'em with a face buster. Yeah, this the show you need and it ain't no need for waiting. Mark, hold it down for the Can Crusher Nation. All about wrestling and keep it entertaining. Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. Time to break them, let's go. Yeah, Can Crushers. Yeah, Can Crushers, let's go.
Welcome back to another Can Crushers Wrestling Spotlight. I am your host, Mark the Mark Martinez, and it is time for a spotlight to go way back. And this one way back is my childhood. I'm really excited to talk to the man that is on the line right now. Holy moly, this is going to bring me back. The Midnight Express, Flair, Steamboat, the Steiners, and I hope we talk about all of them. I hope he gives us more names to go in, because this is going to bring me back. This is going to bring back the TBS, WWF Superstars. Yes, it is awesome. He wrestled in the era of 81 to 96. He might have had a match or two after that, but those are his big moments. The power of the punch. The Cooker, Bob Cook. I'm so stoked to have him on the line. But of course, you know, we have to tell you about everything else here first. Guys, check out Collar and Elbow Wrestling, the shirts, you know, all that stuff. Head over there, check out some of their new merch that they have out. Use the promo code Can Crushers. All one word, capital C and Can, capital C and Crushers. You'll save 10%. Don't forget to check out our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All of it's at CanCrusher69. Send us an email. Tell us how we're doing. Ask us a question. We'll answer it on air. Have us book somebody. All of that. It's all CanCrusher69@gmail.com. Head over to our website, which is all linked to our socials as well. We have merch up there as well. Get a cool shirt from Can Crushers. Do all that stuff. And don't forget to like, subscribe, rate us, review us on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play and Stitcher and all those podcasting host sites that are out there. Yeah, that takes care of the business, because the business is out of the way. I'm excited for this. You're going to hear Al Snow talk about Collar and Elbow. When we come back, the Cooker's on the line, and I'm ready to dig in to everything he wants to talk about, because I'm so excited for this interview.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand. The wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connects emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
And welcome back to Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. Guys, I told you this is an interview for me this week. This is somebody I watched in the childhood, and I saw against Flair, against Pillman, against the Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express. It is the man with the best punch in professional wrestling, the Cooker, Bob Cook. Bob, welcome to Can Crushers tonight. Thanks for spending a couple minutes prior to the interview making me laugh, because I just woke up and I'm feeling like a bag of shit today. So,
well, I appreciate you having me on the show. I appreciate you asking, and I'll see you later.
Okay.
Oh, wait, we're not done yet? Okay.
Yeah. If you want to be, I know you're a big video gamer, and we'll start there. That you want to go play some games right now, or what's up?
Well, I'm not a big video gamer, but I've found a game that I've really enjoyed, and I've become a big video gamer for that game. Although I do want to get the new WWE 2K22 game.
I have it pre-ordered already, and it's waiting on the PlayStation. So I bought with some of the podcast money, so people can throw snide at me there. The Super Edition, super duper $120 one, I get it on Sunday. So I'm pretty pumped about that.
Yeah, that's the one I'd want with the NWO. You can't go wrong with Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
No, you cannot. You cannot. But what game are you playing?
It's a game called Trials Rising. It's like a motorcycle game.
Okay. I've heard of it. I haven't played it.
I bought it like several years ago based on the fact that you could create your own tracks for it. And I'm a big Evel Knievel fan, so I've gone back and created. And when I first got it years ago, I couldn't figure out the created track thing, so I just gave up. But then for some reason, a few months ago, I started twinkering with it. Tinkering? Is that the word? Tinkering? I don't know.
Either way.
I think a twinker was somebody else, right? Anyways, I started playing and I figured it out. Now I've gone back and created a lot of Evel's famous jumps down to a T, you know, where I put his trucks in there, I put his rocket in there, I put all these things that I've been able to create just through pieces of the game. It's not an Evel Knievel game, nothing to do with Evel, but I've gone in and put his outfits on my characters, made his motorcycles, his helmets, and created the scenes like they were in the 70s. Right now I'm even creating Robbie Knievel's building-to-building jump, where I've created the entire city of Las Vegas. It's pretty fun. Boring to anybody who's listening, but I love it.
No, that actually sounds really cool. I know you dabbled with YouTube here and there. Why don't you like stream your content? If you're gonna say it's boring, I'll say that there's maybe idiots like me that want to watch this. Like, I don't have the time or patience to do shit like that, but I love watching the outcome of it then.
Oh, it's tedious as could be. I mean, I spent literally 5 hours last night trying to figure out how to create the illusion of Robbie crashing through bales of hay at the end of the building-to-building jump. But I figured it out, and I spent 5 hours more trying to figure out how to make the pyro go off when he landed, and I figured that out too. I'm a genius. Not really, but we can pretend for tonight.
We can pretend for as long as this episode's out there, right?
But it's turning out great to me. I just find enjoyment, and I'm a depressed person anyways, but it keeps my mind off of other things like, I don't know, nuclear war and fun things like that.
That I was going to bring that around too. Not the nuclear war part, but how it just keeps you busy, right?
Yeah, it does. And I really enjoy it. I mean, I'll spend hours just doing the simplest thing. I try to make everything so perfect. You know, like you have to get things. I don't want even want a little space in between something that shouldn't have a little space. It's almost obsessive, or it is obsessive, I guess.
You told me prior to me hitting the record button that you played for 24 straight hours one time.
Yep.
What were you doing besides playing? That's going to be a PC answer. What part of the jump or whatever were you doing for that 24 straight hours?
Well, it's not. I say playing the game because it's on and you're I guess playing the game. But most of the time I'm spending creating the scenes, creating the jumps, putting everything in place because you got to build the ramps, build the scenes, whatever you're trying to create. You have to create it step by step, and you have to go in and they have all these parts that you can use that have nothing to do with Evel Knievel, and I just turn them into Evel Knievel. The simplest little part that you wouldn't think had anything to do with Evel can create the entire scene. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
I mean, I totally built his truck that he used to tour around the country in, Big Red. They called it Big Red. It's in the game, and I mean, it's just, in my opinion, fantastic. And other Evel fans I post on Evel groups and stuff, they love it too.
Well, I was going to bring that up too. That you're a huge Evel Knievel fan. You knew him pretty much personally too, right?
Yeah, I was a friend of his the last 10 years of his life.
How did that connection come up? We'll get to wrestling, but this is more engulfing to me right now than anything else. And I said this is going to be an interview for me, so F everybody else. How did you guys meet and all that?
Well, it all started because of the internet. I was an Evel fan since I was 5 years old. I started learning about him back in 1968 after he jumped the fountains at Caesar's Palace. It became a national news, and from that point on, I was just a huge fan. And My grandmother used to send me all the newspaper clippings because he was doing something every week in the 60s and 70s. Still have all that stuff. And I've just been a huge fan, had all the toys as a kid, and of all the people who ever walked the earth, and that includes Jesus Christ, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to meet Evel Knievel. Like if they said, hey, Bob, Jesus is across the street, he wants to talk to you about that match with Flair. And I'd say, oh, really? And he goes, but Evel Knievel's over there. He wants to talk to you about anything. I go, well, I'm going to go talk to Evel. That's how serious it was, you know?
Yeah.
And he goes, Jesus will bless you with forever life. But Evel's evil. So,
you can go have a hot dog with Evel Knievel, though.
Right.
Taking a hot dog.
I started getting into the internet around 1996, 97 through this device called Web TV. You know, computers were pretty expensive in the 90s, and they came out, I think it was Microsoft made it, came out with this little device called Web TV. You could hook it to your television and surf the internet.
My dad had that.
And then they went, what really opened up the internet, obviously, was when they went from charging by the hour to giving you that flat monthly fee, and everybody jumped on board. And that was just an inexpensive way to get on the internet. And the first thing I did, this is a long version, by the way, of why you asked. But
that's okay.
I just went on the internet and I just went, I'll type in Evel Knievel, see if he's, you know, what's going on there. And he had a website and a fan club that I knew nothing about because it was the internet and I didn't know nothing about the internet. And the fan club had a number which was to Clearwater, Florida. And it turned out that Evel lived in Clearwater in wintertime. And which I knew originally just through knowing a lot about him. But I called the number. A guy named Mike Gray answered, and I just asked, I said, hey, I'm a big fan of Evel's. Does he ever meet his fans? And Mike goes, yeah, Evel loves to meet his fans. And I had this huge collection and all that. And he goes, oh, bring up pictures. He would love to see it. And he set up the meeting. And I went and met him at a golf course in Clearwater, Feather Sound it was called. And I went with a friend, right? Because I was nervous. You know, this is my idol, someone I put on a pedestal my whole life. And you get to the golf course, and I see he comes up in his golf cart, and he's over by his SUV. Which I didn't really know much about SUVs back then either.
Wow.
But, you know, you just weren't aware of these things in 1997, I think. And I went over there. Yeah, Mr. Knievel, my name is Bob Cook, Mike Gray. Set up the meeting. Oh, hey, Bob, nice to meet you. Shook my hand. He goes, I got to go in here and collect some debts because Evel was a golf hustler and a gambler, and he'd won some money. And he goes, hey, go down to the end of the road to this bar, and I'll be there in a few minutes, right? So about an hour goes by. My friend and I are sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, this guy I've put on a pedestal my whole life blew me off. You know, that's what I was thinking. And then he walks in the bar, he waves us over, and he sat there and he talked to us for over 3 hours, buying us drinks, signing business cards, telling us stories. It was the greatest day of my life, you know, at that point. I'm going, my kid was born in 88, but this is freaking Evel Knievel, damn it. This is the greatest day of my life. Anyway.
Yes, I love that story. I do.
Yeah. And as we were talking, I had mentioned to him, I heard Vince McMahon help promote the Canyon Jump. When he went on to talk about Vince and wrestling, and when the Canyon Jump got brought up, I asked him where he kept the Sky Cycle X2, which was a rocket he used for that jump. He goes, I keep it right here in Clearwater at a friend's warehouse. He says, next time you're up this way, I'll take you by and see it, which is what cemented my ongoing friendship, because at that time I worked for an airport limo service. So I was going to Tampa all the time, and he gave me his business card, and he goes, call me anytime you're coming up this way, and I'll take you by and see it. So literally, I don't know how long it was after. Not long, trust me. Maybe a couple of days I called him.
I was going to say, like 2 or 3 days.
Right, because I'm going up that way, and he goes, but the funny part is I call him, Mr. Knievel, Bob, call me Evel, damn it. And his real name is Bob, too, by the way, or Robert, but.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, Robert Craig Knievel.
Okay.
But he liked being called Evel because that's who he was.
When you're called Evel Knievel, that you have to be called just Evel. His friends, I would want to be just called Evel as well.
Right. I know a lot of people, like his wives and different things, would call him Bob, but I liked calling him Evel. Bob, call me Evel. And anytime he would call me, he'd leave a message on my machine if I wasn't there, or I would go, Bob, it's Evel, call me. But anyways.
That's awesome.
So I went up there, and he took, I brought my wife and kid with me this time, and that was another thing. We met at the same golf course, and he had this awesome Aston Martin car. It's like a freaking James Bond car. It had all these little gadgets in it, and just a fantastic car. And he goes, Bob, you can ride with me, right, to go to the warehouse. And I said, oh, man, there's no way my wife could follow him. You know, she didn't know the area or anything. I was like, my wife wouldn't be able to follow. He goes, okay, follow me. So I'm following Evel Knievel and through it. He's driving like a maniac. It's amazing I even was able to keep up with him. But anyways, we got there and he showed us the rock. He let my kids sit in. It's the long story. But that's how the friendship started, was because, you know, he gave me his number, told him to call, and then just went from there. He even came to my house in 2001.
One of the best friendships of your life, then, having your air quotes God as your friend, the person that you put on the pedestal. Like, that's the best thing that you've ever had in your life.
It's certainly, in that way, I guess, yeah. It's certainly one of my greatest accomplishments, you know, because I always wanted to figure out a way to meet him. And I would have my wife, like, there used to be a show on, I'm just using this show as an example. There's been others, but it was called Jenny Jones.
Yes.
And at the end of the shows, they would say, if you have show ideas, call this number. And I always tell my wife, call that number and tell them to do a show about fans wanting to meet their heroes, you know, just anything I could do to set up a meeting with Evel. And then I just got lucky and all the stars aligned. And now the Russians are going to nuke us to death. But who cares? I met Evel. I'll see him soon. Yeah.
Stop it. You also talked about, I'm going to rewind real quick. You want to get the WWE 2K game. Well, why? No disrespect. I want to get it because I want to play. I want to download more characters that aren't in the WWE, back in the WWE, have my own GM type of deal thing and everything. But what's your scheme or passion to get the new game?
Well, I've always got them. I like playing them. My thing is I'll buy it, play it for like 20 minutes and go, well, I'm going back to my Evel game, because I get bored easy. But if the game sucks, obviously I'm going to be bored even quicker.
Yeah.
This game looks better than, obviously, the last game, but I think anything would be better than that, probably.
Yeah, that's for
sure.
Even
though I didn't think 2020 was that bad. It wasn't as bad as people said. I didn't have a lot of glitches, but then again, I didn't play it as much as most people. But I like to create characters. I always like to create Terry Funk and certain people that, you know, were my favorites.
Yes, and that's what let's transition into wrestling now a little bit. First and foremost, how did you discover wrestling? Who was the one that said, hey, little cooker, you got to watch this because you're going to be a wrestler one day in your life?
Well, I moved to Florida in 1975 from Michigan after my father had open heart surgery, and they advised him to get out of the cold climate. And unfortunately, he listened and regretted it the rest of his life. But anyways, I met a kid down here in Florida called Dale Deibler, who's still alive. I'm friends with him on Facebook. I haven't seen him in 40 years, but, you know, Facebook friends. But we were playing basketball one night, and it was around 7 o'clock, and he's like, hey, man, I got to go home. And I went, what do you got to go home for? It's light out. And he goes, well, I'm going to go home and watch wrestling. I was like 12 years old. And I was like, wrestling? What do you want to watch that for? You know, I didn't really understand anything about it. And I went with him to his house, and I watched it, and I fell in love with it instantly. Championship Wrestling from Florida. Gordon Soley calling the action. Terry Funk was going crazy, and I was hooked.
Those are your first two memories right there.
Yeah, I never missed the show again. So every Saturday night, 6 o'clock. Sundays at noon, they would play the show again. I watched it then. Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons at 2 from Fort Myers Channel, I watched the same show again. And then when you got a VCR, well, that all bets are off.
Right. You just had to rewatch them. Just rewatch them. So how do you get in? We're going to keep all this short because I know you have a ton of other stories. How do you get into wrestling then? When is the love become a passion to say, F this, I'm signing up?
Well, I wanted to be a wrestler since I started watching. I was like, man, I'd like to do that someday. I had no idea, obviously, how to do it. I checked the internet, but it wasn't there then.
It was
kind of crazy, no. But and there was only like 3 TV channels, I think, maybe 5.
If you count PBS, you might have had 5. Yeah.
But, no, all of a sudden lost my train of thought. You know, we used to do that backyard wrestling. A friend of mine who I'm still friends with, haven't seen him in years, but a guy named Mark Starkey. We used to do the backyard wrestling for our neighborhood friends and, you know, put on a show. But I always wanted to be a wrestler, obviously. And a friend and I moved to Tampa after I graduated from high school in 1981. He was going to go to electronics school, which he did briefly. And my idea was to become a wrestler, having no idea how to do it, but knowing the Championship Wrestling from Florida taped their Saturday morning or Saturday TV shows on Wednesday mornings in Tampa at this place called the Sportatorium, which sounds fancy, but it wasn't. Anyways, I went there one Saturday morning to the taping and asked an old, hello, are you still there? No.
Yeah, I'm
Hello?
here. I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm engulfed in your story because I want to say I went to the Omni one time in Atlanta, and we were on our way to Fort Myers in '88, and I got my mom and dad and my brother to stop for a taping, and I was expecting this grand thing, and I know it looked shitty on TV, but I'm 11 years old. We stopped in for a taping. And it's in a closet with like 4 seats. And I'm like, this isn't what I see on TV. This isn't what I picture. You know? Where TBS
What
taped.
is it? Techwood Drive in Georgia or Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little TV studio. Yeah, I've been there before.
You have? I'm shocked. No. You definitely have. You've been on some of the shows.
I lost too, amazingly.
You lost a few times in your career.
But I always like to tell people, you know what? I never really lost, and I never really won, and no one else has either. So suck on that.
Well, I'm going to transition into something, and that actually makes perfect sense because we're going to talk about TV. Al Snow, who's a good friend of mine, and you've met a couple times, and we'll talk about that. He said just to be on TV is a win that doesn't matter, essentially. I'm paraphrasing. Because look at all the shitty things he's done to be on, but you remember him. Remember him as this, remember him as that. He fought in a dog kennel match where him and Big Boss Man watched dogs humped outside the ring the same time that they were fighting. They were on TV. They were making money. Was that kind of the same thing with you? I hate a few words. I hate jobber. I hate enhancement talent. I just figure you're as a wrestler.
That's exactly how I always say. I hate those words too. I prefer the word professional wrestler because that's what I considered myself because I did the wrestling and I got paid for it. Not a lot of money, but you know.
You got paid
but
for it.
I missed the point of putting over my trainer because when I, like I said, moved to Tampa, went to Sportatorium, asked somebody there how to be a wrestler, and they told me to get in good shape and come in for a trial. But back in those days meant that they would stretch you, beat you up like Hulk Hogan says Hiro Matsuda did. And I never went back there. I didn't know that would happen. But the week after that, I went to the Armory in Tampa, which is where they had wrestling every Tuesday night for like 40 years. And when I came out, there was a flyer on my car for the Great Malenko Wrestling School. Become a star, travel the world, make big money, boom. And I went to the school next week, start training. Just wanted to make sure I got in there to put over the Great Malenko as like a father figure, a friend, a mentor.
We were going to talk about the Great Malenko because I know a few people, and I've actually talked to a few people that were also trained by the Great Malenko as well. Barry Horowitz was on the show about 2 years ago, and then most recently we had the Masked Saint, Chris Whaley, on the show as well, trained by the Great Malenko.
I know both of them, and I even have a Barry Horowitz story.
Let's go with the Barry Horowitz story then right now.
Well, it's not a great story, but it was at the time it was more scary than anything. But Barry and I we both worked for Championship Wrestling from Florida. It was 86, 87, I don't know. And we were riding together to, I think, Key West. And I had an old Ford Escort. It wasn't old then, obviously, but, you know, I just say an old Ford Escort. But we were coming back from the show. We pull into a gas station. It's like, 1, 2 in the morning. And try to start the car, it wouldn't start. Something inside the engine had burned up the wires, whatever. So we call a tow truck. These 2 tow truck drivers show up. It's one of those tow trucks, I think it was a flatbed, whatever. But we get in the front, and Barry says, don't tell them we're wrestlers. They'll think we have money. Okay. So we're getting, like there's 2 guys. We're all 4 crammed in the front seat of this truck. And actually what those guys were besides just tow truck drivers, they were repo men. So they're start telling us stories about repoing cars, but they're getting more and more like exaggerated and more animated and more crazy, I'd say. And Barry leans over and he goes, and this was the kicker. They had a gun on the dashboard.
Of course they did.
And Barry leans over and goes, they're losing respect for us. We better tell them we're wrestlers. so they start. Then Barry piped up and mentioned about the wrestler and whatever, and they started to calm down a little bit. But that's like the gist of the story. They took us where they were supposed to go, and we went on our way. But it was, one of those scary moments at because these guys were getting crazy, and they had a gun.
Did they have you guys sitting in the middle of, like, both of them were on the doors and you and Barry were sitting bitch?
No, I was by the...
Okay.
No, it was like the driver, the other guy, the Barry, then me.
Okay. I was going to say, because that would have really been awkward then. You know, there's the gun, you two were sitting bitch, essentially, and they're ready to take you for the $20 in the hot dog that you brought from the wrestling show.
Yeah, they're ready to... We're thinking, you ever see the movie Deliverance?
Yes.
I'm getting a little nervous here.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you know, the Masked Saint as well. Anything with him? Any, you know, time in the ring? He's a little bit before your time, though, right?
No, I think he either around the same time or after. But no, he's a great guy. Yeah. We do these things every 3 months in Tampa with Brian Blair's the host. Legends lunches. Yep. And Chris comes to a lot of those. We honored Barry last year at one of them. It's a good time.
Yeah, those you're reading my notes perfectly. B. Brian Blair and Jumpin' Jim Brunzel both on the show as well. We talked a lot about the Cauliflower Alley Club. We signed up. We're huge supporters of that. We were going to give you time to talk about that and your luncheons at the end of the show, but I think you should talk about it now because it is what the Cauliflower Alley Club does, and the luncheons essentially as well, needs to be talked about more for professional wrestlers because there's no insurance. We talked about this in depth with B. Brian Blair. It's the thing. If you're a wrestling fan and you want to give back to wrestlers, support the Cauliflower Alley Club, right?
Oh, I've always said that, and I'm the social media coordinator for the Cauliflower Alley Club. By the way, I'm not a good one. I'm not a good one, but you know, I do that. But I say that every wrestling school in the country, and there's a heck of a lot more than there should be, but every wrestling school, it should be a prerequisite. Is that a word?
Yes.
To join the Cauliflower Alley. Like when they sit there and tell you, like first, when I trained with Malenko, the first thing he says, you guys got to get boots, got to get trunks, and gave us information on how to do it. And I was excited. I'm like, wait a minute now. I'm a nobody. My name's Bob Cook. I'll always be a nobody, but I'll be damned if I'm not going to get some pro wrestling boots. I mean, as a kid, you're like, I want a real wrestling. My grandmother used to make masks for me. Nowhere near like the real ones, but as a kid, you're like, oh, this is awesome. But I always wanted real wrestling masks. So you want real wrestling. Nowadays, you get your gear at Goodwill or Walmart. But in those days, pro wrestling boots meant something. So when you're at a wrestling school that says, look, you need wrestling boots, you need this, you need that, but you also need to join the Cauliflower Alley Club. That's what it should be.
I agree.
You should make them. Now, obviously, you can't make people do things, but you should encourage them, explain it to them. And if they have a heart or half a brain, they'll realize, well, you know, $30 a year is not much, or I'll be a lifetime member for $300, whatever. You should join. And people should also understand that fans can join. It's not just for wrestlers. It's for wrestlers from the standpoint of who benefits from the money that comes in when they need it, but fans can join. And any real fan of wrestling should join the club because it gives back to the wrestlers.
It does. You guys have helped numerous people. The newsletter that I get, it just rolls out the names that has been helped, and it tells about the luncheons and stuff and everything. So that was kind of a little bit to have that. I knew you were part of it. I didn't know you were the unsocial media coordinator, apparently, huh?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have like spurts where I'll post a bunch of stuff, then I'll get bored, or not bored, but lazy, and that's more like it, lazy.
That's all right. That's because
I remember birthdays when I can, and people who, famous wrestlers who passed away. There's some people, like, if I died or something, I wouldn't post it because, well, I'd be dead. That's why. But the point is that when I'm motivated, I'll post more than other times. But
do you have somebody in the hopper in case you die that they will post your death at least? No. Then it's folded then.
If I die, it'll probably be at my own hand, so I'll just make a big deal about it on Facebook first.
Stop
This was my final post, and then tell a story, and they go, kiss my ass, Mom.
So you talk about how boots mean a lot to you, and your fair wrestling boots. Do you still have them? And tell me the story about them. I know this, but some others might not.
Yeah, I still have all my boots, but I remember Malenko he said, don't get patent leather, get this regular leather, which was my first pair, but I liked patent leather. And so later I got several pairs of patent leather just because they're nice and shiny,
But you also you had a affliction maybe or something with Terry Funk boots.
Yeah, I mean, I call them Terry Funk boots. They're a boot that looks kind of like, not look kind of like, but they're a cowboy boot, but they have the bottoms look like tennis shoes. They got laces, and I call them Terry Funk boots because he's the first person I ever saw wear them. 1986, first time I ever met Terry. He comes into the Sportatorium for TV on Wednesday morning in Tampa for Championship Wrestling for Florida, and he's wearing those boots. He also had an earring in his ear, and I went, damn, that's really cool. Guess what I did when I went home?
You put a pin through your ear.
No, well, I didn't go that far. I went to the mall and got an earring.
Oh, okay. At least somebody else did it. I figured you were just that gun-ho that, boom, you're just going to do it yourself with ice and a pin.
No, I did it myself. I went and had it done, but
okay.
I still wear an earring today because, hey, Terry Funk wore it. What,
Why the hell not?
He looked cool, but I don't, but I still wear it. Anyways, but those are the boots. They're made by a company called Tony Lama, which was famous for cowboy boots. And they started making them in like 84, I think, and they quit making them by the end of the decade. And then they re-released them towards the end of the 90s, but they were a different style, but still cool. But anyways, Terry Funk gave me a pair in 1986. But again, so I've always called them Terry Funk boots. Anybody who's part of the wrestling business that I know who wore them, like Pat Rose, George South, and other guys, we all call them Terry Funk boots because Terry's the guy that wore them everywhere. And they're not wrestling boots. That's the thing. They just happen to have soles similar to wrestling, and Terry wore his everywhere. He wore them in the movie Roadhouse.
I can order a pair of these. I mean, essentially, I could order a pair of wrestling boots as well, too, if I wanted them. But I could get a pair. I thought they were custom made then. Like, I thought George, because I remember George having them as well. I want a pair myself then, if I can order them.
Well, you can't. They don't make them anymore.
I need to steal them from somebody then. I need to steal them from somebody then.
You can find them on eBay once in a while. I have a couple pair of them I'm actually going to sell on eBay. But I've had over 40 pair since I've had them.
No shit.
Had them and bought them in all the different colors they came in and turn around and sell them.
What size boot are you? What size shoe are you?
12.
That's 12. Exactly what I wear. We need to talk.
Oh, really?
we need to talk
well,
about
I'm not going to lie. They're not cheap.
Oh, I know they're not cheap, but, my birthday's next week or, Father's Day is coming up, and I'm loud enough that my wife will hear me upstairs that shit may roll downhill, and I could get a pair of Terry Funk boots.
Well, I have a nice white and dark blue pair that are in pretty damn mint condition, considering they were made in the 80s.
Yeah.
And by the end of the 80s, you couldn't find them in stores other than stock that was already there. They quit making them. But you could call the company at that point and have them made custom. It took like 60 to 90 days, and you had to fill out all this stuff, which I had several pairs made like that. But the coolest part, again, was that I asked Terry where he got the boots, because as soon as I saw it, it was Terry that made it, because when you're a mark, or I don't like that to use that term, but just you like somebody, like Terry, in the rest of the world, Terry is evil to me, as far as that pedestal. So when you first met him and you realize this guy who is so mean, and as a kid, you saw him beat up more fans than anybody else. I mean, literally, and I know it's an exaggeration, but it seems that every time he would come to the ring, because I saw him several times as a kid in the 70s and 80s, he would have to beat up fans because he would just get that heat. But he turned out to be like this most humble, nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. And anytime he would be around, I'd sit next to him because he'd tell you stories and help you out, give you advice. And I asked him, man, where'd you get those boots? Those are the coolest thing. And again, it was Terry that made it, because it's like Terry Funk's wearing an earring, he's wearing boots. If he was wearing sandals in the earring, you're like, those are the coolest sandals I've ever seen.
Yes.
This is the original dude, man.
Right.
But I saw the boots on him, and he always wore them the way I think cowboy boots should be worn, and that's you tuck your pant legs in the boot, because they're cowboy. What are you going to hide them for? And I asked him where he got them, and he goes, and he gave me a pair. He goes, I want you to have these, and he gave me the number to where to get more, and he goes, but promise me not that you won't tell anybody else where to get them, because everybody will be wearing them, which he said. He was just joking, but he said, don't tell anybody where you got them, because everybody will be wearing them. Wow. But anyways, that's how I first got hooked on that boots, and then I would get my own pairs over the years after that.
Yeah. Well, when I hit the stop, we need to talk about that pair. I'm being dead serious. We'll work something out. I want to know what defines a good wrestling match for you. It could be anybody. What is your match that would get anybody hooked? I know one thing that's in my head, and I know that you're going to get there.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of factors, but for me, it doesn't have to necessarily be people I like. Because I'm not a Kevin Owens fan, but I've seen him have matches where I went, "Holy crap, that was a hell of a match." I always give people credit, no matter what. And a lot of people can't do that. Like there's a lot of people who hate Roman Reigns, but you go out there and just because you hate him, you don't realize that the kid's as talented as hell. I mean, that's insane. But Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk, 1981 Mid-South Coliseum. I absolutely love that match. I've probably watched it 1,000 times over the years. It's nothing, it's not a lot of technical moves, but the crowd is into it. You got the ultimate bad guy against the ultimate babyface in his home territory. They're that rabid crowd. They got that amazing ring sound at the Mid-South Coliseum. The place is packed. They've built the feuds where everybody wants to see Jerry beat Terry. There's blood. Every punch looks amazing, which again to me is a very important aspect of wrestling.
Yes.
But there's so many great wrestling matches though. I mean, you could go on for hours talking about great wrestling matches.
You said it though. You said it, and I don't think you realized that you said it. That they built the feud. So there's one word for that. There's a story going into a match. So the story is kind of one of the most important things in a wrestling match.
If it's done correctly, obviously, but you don't even have to have a story if you go out there and have a great match. And nowadays, who knows what's a great story and what isn't? Fans nowadays are the most Daniel Bryan or Brian Daniels or whatever the heck his name is now. The American Dragon. Isn't that what he calls himself?
Yeah, yes, he's American Dragon now.
He's right, even though he was using it as a gimmick in WWE, technically was the truth. That fans are fickle, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
I've never seen a more toxic fan base in the world. But again, I'm not a fan of anything else. Like I don't watch boxing, I don't watch MMA, I don't watch football, baseball, I don't watch any sports. And I'm sure their fans are toxic too. And technically they are, because I used to have a friend who loved football and every season be like, "Oh man, I can't wait the Dolphins this year." And after 2 games they start losing. Nah, the hell with the Dolphins. They wouldn't even watch the game. That's not a fan. That's just a bandwagon jumper. Like if your team does good, you want to be there. But if they don't, you don't care. That's not a fan. You should watch it because you love the sport. So if they win, they win. They lose, they lose. But go watch it,
Exactly. You're right. You're right.
So many fans like this today are just the worst. I mean, you could sit there like that Saudi Arabia show last month or whatever. I thought it was a great show from start to finish. But you got people who just hated on it. And it's like, what are you people insane? What do you want from WWE? Especially considering that literally for $4.99 a month, they're watching pay-per-views that would have cost you $60 10 years ago, you morons.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't know how many times when I was younger, it was my mom dropping the money because I didn't have a job. I was not of age to have a job yet. Paper route, but I was spending that on crack and whores. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Now your ears pop up. But Mom was dropping $35 a month. So, me and my hooligans could be in here watching wrestling events. She did it. Now I pay for it so I can watch The Office most of the time, and I will watch the events, but you're right. I enjoyed the Elimination Chamber. I thought it was one of their better pay-per-views in a long time.
But there's so many fans now that they just go in with the mindset it's going to suck, so no matter what they do, it's going to suck because that's what you think it's going to be. And nobody can, again, I give credit where I'm not a big fan of Drew McIntyre, this kid Moss. But they had a hell of a match, too, even though the kid almost paralyzed himself. If he'd have done that 25 years ago, he probably would have paralyzed himself because the WWE rings were hard as hell back then.
Do you watch AEW as well?
No.
What
I do is I go on the YouTube channels and I see what do they call those little thumbnail things, and if it interests me, I'll click on it. But I usually end up just like,
kind of like
not just AEW. I don't even watch WWE anymore. I don't watch SmackDown or Raw or NXT anymore. I watch the pay-per-views because why not? And I'm definitely going to watch WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania.
Right.
I lost a job over WrestleMania in 1984 or 85, the first one.
Wait, I don't know the story. I need to know this story. How the hell did you lose a job over WrestleMania?
Well, I was, besides wrestling, this is 1984. I'd only been wrestling for, since late 81 to, it's like 3 years, whatever. And I had a job as a security guard where I sat in a shack in front of old people's housing complexes and, let people in. Great job, because you sat down. My boss was really cool at the time, even though he fired me. But I had told him I said, look, I asked him like weeks before this that, I'm going to WrestleMania. They played WrestleMania 1 in arenas around Florida on closed circuit TV. So I had to go to the Lakeland Civic Center, which is like an 8,000 seat arena. And a friend and I got tickets to be there to watch it on closed circuit TV. And I told him ahead of time that we're going. We got the tickets. Oh, no problem. But the day before the show, he goes, Bob, you got to work. So what do you mean I got to work? I had to ask it out. Well, this guy can't come in. You got to do it. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm going to WrestleMania. He goes, well, you got a choice, WrestleMania or this job. I said, well, I'm going to WrestleMania, kid. That's it.
WrestleMania 1 is the only one that I've never watched live.
Really?
Yeah, not being there or anything.
Oh, you mean you never watched live when it first happened?
Yeah, when it first happened. That was the only one. Otherwise, I was at closed circuits or then pay-per-views came out or, all like that. WrestleMania 1 was the only one that I did not see when it actually happened. All the other ones, up until even next month, I will watch it, hopefully, God willing, or my wife willing. Yeah, I've watched all of them.
But you have watched WrestleMania 1.
I have. Oh, yeah, God, yeah. I own the tapes. Yeah. I still like VCR tapes. Yeah.
Oh, well, I just got rid of all my VCR tapes.
Nostalgia.
I had over 2,000 tapes, and I was like, you know what? These are sitting in boxes. I'm never going to look at them again. And
right.
I gave them to a friend.
Right, and everything's on digital copy now that it's easier instead of pulling it out. Yeah.
Years ago, like maybe 10 years ago or so, I had a DVD recorder. And I put all this, I put 200 or so hours of my own stuff from old tapes on DVD. And the only stuff I have VCR is like commercial tapes still.
Okay. Yep. The Coliseum video ones then, essentially?
Yeah, a lot of those.
Yeah.
Other ones.
Okay, so let's talk about your career. We've really been jumping, and we'll continue to jump. Screw it. We don't have to need a rundown. But we always talk about the power of the punch. You have the best punch in the business. How did that moniker come? Who gave you that? And because you do. After I went back and watched some more, you really do have the best punch in the business still. Because now it's not even a punch. It's or a forearm or an elbow or a leg slap.
Or if it is a punch, it looks like crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched the AEW once in a while, just the little clips that they show on their YouTube channel. I watched some clip of Hangman Adam Page from last week or something. He's their world champion. He comes running down to the ring, jumps in the ring, and I think he was punching the Bucks or something. And the punches look god awful. And I'm thinking, man, you would never catch Terry Funk doing that, Jack Briscoe doing that, when they were world champions. It's unbelievable that they air this on national TV. But anyways, I digress. Is that a word too?
That is a word
somewhere. Maybe you mean Gene Oakland said it. But first of all, I appreciate everybody who says that about the greatest punch, which I don't believe I have. To me, the greatest punch of all time is Jerry the King Lawler when he's on. Nobody punches like you ever watch his matches with superstar Bill Dundee or Terry Funk, as I said, Nick Bockwinkel. When they're on, when they're in their prime, when they're motivated, Jerry Lawler had the best punch because he could punch all kinds of different directions, roundhouses, uppercuts, straight to your face, lefts, rights. Didn't matter. They all looked amazing. And he didn't hurt you at all, which is the art of the punch, by the way, for all you marks out there who thinks wrestlers should be stiff and hit each other. It's not MMA. It's wrestling. It's supposed to look real without being real. That's the art. Any idiot can go out and punch somebody, And 90% of the time, real punches look worse because you're trying not to hurt the guy, but you're trying to hit the guy. It doesn't make any sense. But to me, Jerry Lawler has the best puncher. A lot of guys have great punches. Don't get me wrong. I just say someone has to be the best, so it's Jerry Lawler.
Okay.
But to answer your question, the guy who started that was Bill Watts in WCW whenever he came in. I don't remember when it was, 91, 92. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was 92, but yeah.
But he's the one who started that. I was at Center Stage time and was working with, I was there more than once, but I'm just sitting at one time. This is the one time.
Yeah, one time I was there, and he said, he's got the best punch. You're fired.
Right. I was working Van Hammer.
Okay.
And after the match, who, by the way, is a great guy and gets a lot of flack you don't deserve, but that's another story. After the match, I was upstairs at the place getting a Coke, whatever, and Pee Wee Anderson, who's no longer here, said, Cook, Watts wants to see you. And back in those days, or anytime Watts days, I guess, usually that meant you're going to get yelled at for something, which, by the way, is another story where Sting saved me from getting yelled at by Watts one night. But anyways, I go down in the hallway of the place, and everybody's in the hallway. And Watts goes, I want to tell you guys something. This guy has the best punch I've ever seen next to my own. He threw that in there,
Of course.
And he goes, from now on, I want you guys to sell it like crazy, and I want the announcers to put it over. And he goes, and by the way, if everybody had a punch like this, this business wouldn't be in the shit it's in right now. And again, that's a great accolade. I was like, oh, man, I can't believe you're saying that in front of everybody. And then he asked me to help teach his son, Eric, another guy who gets a lot of flack he didn't deserve. I mean, he was just a young kid and put in a tough position and handled it really well. But that's another story. I went in a room somewhere at the sportatorium in center stage and tried to help Eric learn how to throw a punch. And I'm a horrible teacher, by the way. So,
well, that was my next question. Like, why did you never start a wrestling school or anything like that, or at least become a trainer to be able to show these kids nowadays, or even 20 years ago, essentially, the art of wrestling?
Well, what's funny is in 1986, I had a wrestling school for a brief time.
Oh.
Tony Marino was a famous wrestler from back in the day in the 60s, 70s. He was also good friends with the Great Malenko, and he was involved in a TV show that I was also part of, because the Great Malenko was part of it, Angelo Poffo and different people. And Tony had a school in Tampa, and I used to go there. I think it was like late 84, 85, just get different training. You go try to learn different things. And his training was brutal. But the short of the story is that he shut his school down, and he didn't have anywhere to put his ring. And I asked Tony, I said, hey, we could open a place up down by where I live. We found a warehouse, and he let me use the ring for a while. And I trained a few people like Rex King, who went on to become well done in WWE.
Okay.
And a guy named Rick Ryder, who did a lot of stuff in TV, TV stuff with me in WCW and different things. But Rick and he's actually my favorite opponent ever. We had any kind of match you could think of here in Florida for like 10 years on the indies and main events, semi-main events. And you go back to your statement earlier about being on TV and what it means. Back in those days when you were on TV, even though you're the loser, independent shows would put you on WCW Superstar, WCW Star, whatever, or they promote the fact you were on WCW in the indie show.
Yeah, and you were the one bringing, as Ricky Morton would say, you were the one putting asses in seats then.
Well, probably not, but anyways, they would use that as a plus on the cards.
I went to wrestling events because Barry Horowitz was there, or Iron Mike Sharp was somebody coming out. People like that were like, holy shit, we're gonna see this guy that's on WWF or WCW, NWA, or anything. We're going. I didn't know Sam Jones or anybody that was there. I knew Iron Mike Sharp was going to be there, so me and the boys, drove. We live in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, by the way. We're 3 hours north of Pittsburgh, 2 hours south of Buffalo, and if I look out my window right now, there's trees. And that's it for miles and miles.
Well, as the nuclear holocaust is upon us, that's the best place to be.
It really is. It really is.
For your area.
Yeah, we're perfect up here right now. We don't have shit going on.
Right.
But
I didn't have the patience to be a trainer. Like when I was a kid, like I said, I did the backyard wrestling, although I didn't know exactly what they were doing on TV. We emulated as best we could. We practiced all kinds of them. And I had the backdrop down perfect. We used to do, like, you're going to powder up a guy and they'll put you over like a backdrop. We used to do that stuff on concrete when I was a kid. It's just like Harley Race did for 40 years.
God.
It's stupid stuff. And
how many documented concussions do you have?
I don't know. I've never been to a doctor for a concussion. I've been knocked out a few times in the ring. Does that count as a concussion? I don't know.
Close enough, yeah.
Like Mark Starr knocked me out with a dropkick off the top rope. Rick Steiner knocked me loopy with a clothesline. Those guys, Thunder and Lightning, knocked me out with a forearm. But anyways, look, I'm losing my train of thought because of all those concussions.
See? So enough.
But like a lot of my point was that I had a little bit of a knowledge of what was going on, but then when I went to Great Millennium School, obviously he taught me the real reason to do things and how to do things and the correct way to do things. But I learned quick. That's my point. And as a trainer, if you didn't, like, if I'm trying to show you how to do a lockup or a headlock and you can't figure it out after a couple of times, I'm like, what the hell am I here for?
Yeah.
Because people who would, so they had no patience. But then again, in like 2005, my kid expressed interest in becoming a wrestler, and a friend of mine. And I was at a local convenience store, and there was this flyer about a wrestling school right in our town that I didn't know about. And we went to the school, met the guys, nice guys and everything, not the greatest trainers, but they started training with them a little bit. And I'd sit there while they were training, and these guys are showing them stuff the wrong way and doing different things. And my kid knew. He'd look over at me, and I'd just shake my head, no, these guys don't know what they're doing.
Do you pull them out of there real quick? Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, a friend and I bought a ring, and I had it in my backyard for a while. So I trained my friend, I trained my kid, and I had other people come over. But again, I had no patience for it. And people don't have no dedication. Like, porn is free, but guess what? Training to be a wrestler shouldn't be. So you'd have guys that want to be wrestlers, and they'd start to pay you, and then I can't pay you this week. So I just got tired of it.
Yeah, so you can't come next week then. You don't pay me, you can't come.
Right. To make a long story short, I was a horrible trainer, and I didn't have the patience for it.
Okay.
Not a good teacher.
Not a good teacher. Questions now. How do you start? I remember seeing you first in NWA/WCW, whatever the hell you want to call it. It will always be NWA to me. It really will. How do you transition from like NWA and get to go to WWF? Because I know there's contracts and stuff like that for the big guys, we'll put it like that. But, and again, I said I hate using this word, but for enhancement talent, how do you make that transition to another federation?
Friends.
Yeah.
There was a guy named Jimmy Backlund or Jimmy Del Rey who was a tag team with Tom Pritchard as the Heavenly Bodies and Smoky Mountain with Jim Cornette. And he got a job with WWF. And I think they were the Heavenly Bodies, right, Tom? And,
they were.
And
yep.
But Jimmy called me one day. Wow, you want to do TV for WWF? Sure. That's how it happened. That's simple.
That's simple. But that's a hell of a lot easier than it is now, right?
What? Oh, I don't know. Now it seems probably easier than ever to get in wrestling, isn't it? I don't know.
Well, to get into wrestling, yeah, shit, I can have one in my own backyard and stream it, and I'm going to get 1 million views. And right, is it really wrestling?
MonsterRings.com, HighSpots.com. You got a ring.
Yeah.
Tax season, there's going to be more shows coming soon.
Oh, shit, there's already so many published being thrown up around Pittsburgh right now that, yeah. And the promises of everybody get it. And, I hate to say this, but the Patriot, Del Welks, but Tom Brandi is the Patriot now. But, when I still think of the Patriot, I think of Del Welks. And he's promised to be at this show. And I'm like, God, this guy is such a effing scam artist. So yeah,
he's promising Del Wilkes the Patriot.
No, he's just saying the Patriot, the original Patriot, will be here.
Oh,
the original is what pisses me off. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe he doesn't know. Even though you should look up how you can find out facts releasing nowadays.
Right, you should. But again, it's tax season wrestling. It really is.
But Tom's a great guy, though. So
Tom is a good guy. Tom Brandi actually did a show in our hometown, January 15th, 1995, right before he went to be Salvatore Sincere.
Huh.
He was Johnny Gunn.
Yeah, that's right. I worked with him in WCW when him and Tom Zink were a tag team.
Yep. There's something on YouTube. I believe you talked with Hannibal or somebody. And it's going to be a twofold question. You said that Arn Anderson, you and his match was like one of the brutalest matches that you've had, but he was like a feather. with you. Like, you sold everything so good. Can you kind of elaborate on that? And then on the flip side, because we've heard that Arn is such a light worker, but makes it look brutal, not horrible, brutal. But do you have somebody on the flip side that doesn't make it look so good and is a terrible worker? Like, we've heard things about the Iron Sheik of just literally beating the piss out of people.
I never worked with the Iron Sheik. I was a tag team partner with him a couple times, but no, I didn't say Arn's match was brutal. The guy I was talking to said it looked brutal, and I said, well, I got news for you. It wasn't. It was easy as could be. But to me, I mean, I never worked with a lot of guys who were stiff, and I worked with the Road Warriors and Steiner and Kevin Sullivan, all these guys that people think are killers, and they can be, and I've seen them do it to guys, but they were easy as heck to me. I never hit them too hard, and they never asked me to hit them hard. So everybody thinks everybody should be stiff, but in those days, nobody liked somebody to be stiff. Nobody asked you to hit them harder.
Was it a respect thing then? Like, did the Road Warriors ask for you to be, because you were in a hell of a lot of Road Warrior matches, I don't
think they ever asked who to work, in my case, but they just, Jody Hamilton, the Mass Assassin, was the one who set up most of the TV matches with the jobbers, a term I hate to. But I don't think anybody said, hey, I want to work with Bob Cook,
Okay.
But again, very few guys were stiff. I mean, the biggest jerk, and I've said this 100 times on different podcasts, was Vader, Matt Bourne, Buzzsaw, guys like that who had no respect for anybody, especially the TV guys. Vader was constantly told to stop hurting people, and he wouldn't listen because he had no respect. He didn't care about anybody but himself. And I don't care what anybody thinks. They can say that Vader is a nice guy. Oh, I met Vader 5 years ago. He was nice as hell. Yeah. He was also not a star 10 years prior. I mean, he'd gone down, everybody becomes humble at some point.
Yeah.
Well, not me, of course. I got an ego the size of that nuclear warhead coming towards me. I'm just kidding.
I wasn't going to bring up Vader, but you brought up Vader. Was that the only reason why Vader was essentially a dick and, rest in peace, and now he's going into WWE Hall of Fame? But was there any other clash with Vader? Or was it just because of what he did to the talent?
Well, I mean, I had a couple of incidents with Vader. They're not really clashes. I never talked to him that much, but he was just a guy who, again, clearly had no respect for anyone. He didn't just hurt the TV guys. He hurt a lot of the big stars like Nikita Koloff and Steamboat and Sting and Jack and Cactus, whatever. But what was I going to say? I was coming to the Ramada Inn where all the guys stayed after TV in Atlanta one night, doing what everybody's been drinking. And Mike Graham and Vader are coming back. And Mike goes, oh, we just got thrown out of a bar because of Vader. And for a fight or whatever. And I was like, I was drunk too. I was like, oh, I don't like to fight. And Vader grabbed me, goes, you want to fight? And Mike's like, calm down, Vader. He's one of us, But Vader was just a jerk. And I know he has people who probably liked him. Maybe his wife liked him. I don't know. But I don't know a lot of guys that liked him. TV guys, at least.
Right. When I said TV guys, I meant the whole gamut, because I know, clearly Mick Foley doesn't have an ear because of him, and yeah,
but that wasn't Vader's fault.
No, but still,
I mean,
that was
Mick going, hey, I'm going to do this weird move. These ropes are tight as hell. I'm going to try to stick my head in between them and get them kind of tied up. It'll be cool.
Right. Yeah. We're on the line. I might as well go down this line as well. Screw it. I'm just in a mood. I'm on beer number 2 during this podcast.
I got a case of Hard Mountain Dew I haven't tapped into yet.
Real Hard Mountain? What the hell is Hard Mountain Dew? Just came
out last week. Mountain Dew with booze in it.
Is it? No shit. I didn't even hear about it. Well, don't forget, we're a little bit out of the world up here.
Well, they don't have it in your state yet. It's only released in 3 states, like, I don't know where, but Florida got it. That's all I know. And I'm addicted to Mountain Dew. And I've seen reviews and people were saying the original flavor tastes like Mountain Dew. And I'm like, wait a minute now. I've always aspired to be a drug addict, but I'm going to wait till I'm 80. I've always wanted to be an alcoholic because life sucks. Now's my chance.
What's the alcohol percentage in it?
Just like a beer, 5%.
Oh, 5%. Okay. Just still though, I'm in for that.
you drink a beer. I mean, if I drink all 12 of them, I'm probably going to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Now you have to send me a pair of boots and Mountain Dew.
Let me rephrase that. When I drink the whole 12-pack.
Yeah, because that's going to happen as you're building something tonight. Jim Crockett. Let me just say that. What comes to mind when you hear the words Jim Crockett?
Bug-eyed, mongoloid-looking freak.
Why?
He's the guy who killed Florida wrestling, in my opinion. In 1987, he bought Florida wrestling from Mike Graham and whoever else owned it. Promised us all kinds of things. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Then shut it down by the end of the year. That's Jim Crockett. He only bought Florida wrestling to get their TV slots.
And that was it. Just roll them over.
Yeah. And he wasn't the nicest guy. I mean, I always like to say his checks never bounced, which is good. And we got paid decent for the loser I am. But I remember one time at the Miami Beach Convention Center, I was walking to the hallway and Jim was like leaning against the wall or something. And he had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And I just walked by and wasn't paying attention. I accidentally knocked a cigarette out of his mouth with my shoulder, which would probably give you an indication how short the man was. But and he gave me like the dirtiest, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Crockett. He didn't say anything. That's okay. He just gave you the dirtiest look, like he wanted to kill you. I'm thinking, Jesus, it's a cigarette. Calm down.
Right? You got
I'm sure you've had worse things in your orifices. Just relax, kid. But so he gave me that dirty look. But then years later, after Turner bought Crockett, Jim still hung around a lot. I know he had some kind of role, but he was around a lot. And at one of the pay-per-views, I think it was in Milwaukee, when Sting beat Luger for the title just before Lex went to WWE in 91 or whatever it was for the first time.
Okay. I'm trying to roll back my head, but I don't know if I can make it to 91, but yeah.
When he was going to be the narcissist or whatever.
Yeah.
But he lost to Sting, and then they did this angle in the back where Sting had it tied on Rick Rude, interrupted, and Sting and Rude got in a big fight. And all of us guys had to break it up, Rip Rogers and me, because we were all like dressed as security. And Jim was standing next to me, and he was such a different person from that point because he no longer had the stress of running the whole company, right? And I was like, hey, Mr. Clark, would you hold my glasses for me so I can break this fight up? And he held my glasses. He was really nice. That's the point of my story. I don't even know where I went with that. Too many concussions.
See? I told you. They're just not documented. All right, let's talk about some more people that you worked with. Everybody, of course, doing a little bit of homework. Everybody talks about you and Flair. You know, was that one of your greatest matches? You only fought Flair one time ever, right? I thought that. Why is that one always brought up?
Well, because I post it every year on my Facebook.
Okay.
Because
it's the only thing
I
you post
wrestled Flair.
Okay.
I think it's cool. I did screenshots of it, and I posted on my Facebook every year at his birthday. And I goes, you know, wishing him a happy birthday, and then I like to just brag that I wrestled Flair.
Was that one of your highlights in wrestling Flair?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it was fun. Again, it was just a TV match. It was like Flair less than 5 minutes long.
Right.
But it's certainly not the best match I ever had by far. And it wasn't a horrible match because Flair. How bad could it be? I mean, I was in it, so that doesn't help. But I didn't even want to wrestle him the day it happened. It just worked out that I worked with him. It is funny. I did this interview with I think it was that same podcast. Some news site took the part where I talked about working with Flair, and it said the headline of the story says, "Former WWE superstar says why he didn't want to work with Flair." And I click on it. I saw that, and I click it. That's me. What are they thinking? I was thinking, man, they called me a WWE superstar, so it's on the internet. Must be true, right?
It's got to be true. It's exactly.
But they actually took that little bit that I had said and made it into a headline. I thought that was funny.
And spun it though. Because you were just
saying...
No,
they didn't spin it. No, they just used it as a head. If you read the headline, you'd think, well, this guy, you would think negatively, maybe it's something negative about Flair. And then when you go read the story, they quote everything I said, which is not negative at all. I love Flair. I thought he's one of the greatest of all time. He was always cool to me. It's just the day I had to work with him, I didn't want to. You know who Dave Penzer is?
Yes. And
I know I've told the story 100 times, but back in those days, Dave was like Jody Hamilton's right-hand man. He just did a lot of stuff for him, printed stuff, helped him out, whatever. And he comes up to me, he's at the wherever it was in Orlando. "Hey, Bob, guess who you're working?" I said, "I don't know." He goes, "You're working Flair." And I was like, "Oh, crap, I don't want to work Flair." And Dave's like shocked. He's like, "What do you mean you don't want to work Flair? You love Flair." I thought you'd love to work for Flair because Dave was with Jody in their, figuring out the TV, who's going to work who. And I suggested you work Flair, and Jody loved it. And I said, "But he's Ric Flair. What if I hurt him? What if I do something wrong? What if I make a mistake? I'll be the most hated guy in the business. I don't want to work with Flair." That was my mindset. It wasn't like, I don't want to work with Flair. I don't want to lose to Flair. That's crazy. I'd lose to Flair every day. It just, I didn't want to take, what if I hurt him? Like I wrestled Joey Maggs in that underdog challenge match, and I hurt him in the first move. What if I did that to Flair? That was my mindset. And, but then I went out and had the match, and it was easy as heck. We didn't go over the whole match before we went out for 3 hours and forget it like most kids do today. Just before we went out, we're standing at the door, and I said, "Rick, what are we going to do?" And he goes, "Just listen to me and remember the figure 4, Bob. It'll be fine." Boom. That was it.
Wow.
Everything you see me do in the match, he told me to do, from poking his eye to whatever. He told me to do it. And that's the best.
Yeah, on the fly. Is that your favorite part of just doing it on the fly compared to, like you said, having it scripted? Because I heard Savage and Steamboat had to have their matches scripted to the T.
It's not true. It's not true.
Oh, thank you. Somebody finally saying that.
No, a lot of people think that because that one WrestleMania match was from start to finish, you could call it scripted. But I was with Steamboat a couple of years ago to FanFest in Tampa. I mean, I wasn't with him, but I was there at the FanFest because I'm friends with the guys that run. Dave Pinzer is actually the guy who put it on. And I would always go to those just to hang out with the guys, But Steamboat was there, and he had a question and answer, and that was brought up. And he said that him and Randy wanted to make sure, because they knew that was a special moment. We're talking WrestleMania 3. We're talking 90,000+ people. We're talking worldwide everything.
Yep.
Biggest event in history. And they wanted that match to be perfect. So they would both, I think he said they had like 160 different aspects of the match, something like that. And they both had notepads, and they wrote down what they were doing. And throughout the months leading up to the match, they would quiz each other. They'd see each other in the dressing room, whatever, and they'd say 68. Steamboat was like, whatever it was, 68, oh, drop down, leapfrog, hip toss, get it again, whatever the spot was. And they would quiz each other continuously and go over it when they were together. So they got that match perfect, but that was the only one.
Oh, see? Sons of bitches. It's on the internet, so I believed it.
Right. So people think that Randy did that with every match he ever had, and it's just not true.
Thank you. That makes me feel better. I don't know why, but that makes me feel better.
I'm that way too.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, all these people said for years that Savage liked to go over. So now he may have been meticulous about things he liked to do. I don't know. I only met him a couple times. I knew his father really well and Lanny, but that's the point. That was the only match that he really did that with. And hey, if anybody would know, I think it'd be the guy in the match.
Right. Yeah. And Steamboat was a little bit in that match. Yeah.
Right. And he said they would go over things, and they would try to quiz each other to make sure they remembered different things. And then they would take things away, add things. This is basically like a Hollywood script. Like, okay, you're going to be with this guy, however it was. But that's what they did.
That's what, all right. Who did you I know I kind of asked this when we were talking about Funk a little bit, but who are some other ones that you really enjoyed working with? Because I have the list, like, that I said, that Pillman Eaton, the Road Warriors. Was there somebody else that you really, really enjoyed working with?
Well, like I said, the Rick Ryder is my favorite opponent ever, but that wasn't TV. TV, I never liked doing TV. And I had no problem with losing. That wasn't the issue. I just got nervous. I always, what if you made a mistake? You look like an idiot, whatever. I never liked it. I was always nervous, but I did it because I did it. But for me, as far as TV stuff goes, I mean, Eddie Gilbert, I was going to say Eddie Gilbert was fantastic. Bobby Eaton, Cactus Jack. I mean, most of the guys, Steamboat, unbelievable. Jerry Lawler, one of my all-time favorites. Getting to work with him was just, even though, again, it was just a short TV match with Jeff Jarrett as his partner against me and Pat Rose. And thanks to Pat Rose, that's another somewhat funny story. But thanks to Pat Rose, the match happened. But those are just some of my best memories, even though they're short, but they're like your heroes, Because I was always a big Jerry Lawler fan and Harley Race and different people like from that era. So being able to work with Lawler, and then the greatest compliment I ever got after the match, got a hell of a punch there, kid. Boom. Validation, regardless if anybody else agrees. The king telling you got a great punch.
Yeah, that.
I knocked down the king.
You knocked down the king.
And then he got up and jab, 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 big punch. Guess what I felt? The bump I took. Not the punches. You know why? Because it's work. It's a work.
What has wrestling brought to your life?
The greatest times ever. I mean, and a long time friendships. Like I'm still, again, it's also a business where once you're gone, and you don't see a lot of guys. But there are certain ones that have been able to stay in contact with since the beginning and beyond. And again, our Legends lunches to me is so important. Being able to get together with a bunch of guys every few months and just goof around, have fun.
Do you
forget about life?
Yeah, that's number one.
I'm on the board of directors of the Legends Lunches. There you go.
There you go. And you're a social media coordinator for Collar and Elbow. There you go. Do you do cons a lot? Like there's what the hell's the one I'm going to in November? WrestleCade that's in North Carolina. Like, do you do those? Do you do or where you travel around, or do you stay kind of in Florida right now?
Yeah, I don't do any of that stuff. I wish I could. See, I'm not famous enough to do that. I wish I was just famous enough to make money to fake smile, shake hands, and sign autographs.
And that sucks. Because I know it sucks for you, because it sucks overall, because what you did for the wrestling business is, and I don't get me wrong, I'd love to talk to Flair. I'd love that he's got his own podcast. I'd love to talk to this one, that one, this one. They're made. We hear their stories. That's why I like talking to you and Barry, and because we don't get to hear these stories enough of. Like you don't get to go to WrestleCade because people don't know who the hell you are, and that bothers me. And I want to get you out there more. I mean, I'm not being a publicist or a promoter or taking 10% of shit. I'm just saying, like, again, this bad word of enhancement talent needs to be recognized and loved for what you've done for the business. You were my childhood. I saw Flair beat you up because Flair was in this story with whomever at that time. I saw the Road Warriors fucking rip your head off. But you were there. Bob Cook was in my childhood. So a lot of guys. You were there. A lot of guys get those sponsors to bring them into. So if anybody out there wants to sponsor Bob Cook at one of those places, hey, pin me, pay me, as Bobby Blaze would say. Yes. So let's get that going. By the way, WrestleCade is the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday right after Thanksgiving in November. So we got some time to get this going. We have to. I know George South real well. He's part of that, but I wouldn't pay to go. Like I wouldn't you can get a table and do whatever. I wouldn't do that. No, somebody's gonna sponsor your ass to get there. We're gonna get this. We're gonna get there. Which isn't gonna happen either. I don't know. Well, I got some podcast money. Don't be no. Ronnie Garvin. Well, I'd be the new Virgil. They take pictures. I don't know who this Bob Cook guy. I'd be sitting there playing on my phone. No one be in line. I don't know if you'd be the new Virgil. I'll tell you that right now. We see enough of him in Pittsburgh on a flea market. So let's just really, yeah. Those stories are true, Bob. Those stories are true. He just literally shows up sometimes, and there he is. What the fuck is Virgil doing outside the supermarket? Selling stuff. Yeah, well, if he actually sells stuff, that's a good thing. He pushes. He pushes more than people want. I digress. You used it. I'll use it there. He's got action figures he can sell, at least. He does. You have a shitload of boots that you can sell. I have, never mind. I won't talk about what I got going on. Yeah. I know it's not the same, but the best punch in the business and hands of stone. Did you and Ronnie Garvin ever have, this is a joke question, I guess, did you guys ever have a beef or talk about it? Because I know it's not the same thing, but if you look, it's kind of at least in the same family.
Yeah, I know. I've never really talked to Ronnie. He comes to our Legends lunches, but I don't talk to him. I mean, I would shake his hand or something, but I don't really know him that well. I'm glad I never got to work with him on TV because he used to really treat you guys like crap, and I don't appreciate that.
No. Yeah, I don't want to keep throwing everybody under the bus here tonight. We can do that in another episode. You won championships in Florida. You were a former NWA Florida Tag Team Champion. Let's talk about those days a little bit before, if you don't mind. I know I said about an hour, but we're going to go over if you don't care.
I ain't got nothing to do.
Good. Let's talk about those days a little bit, kind of not the bigger things that you've done. Did you enjoy those more than just being, and I know I keep throwing it out there and I don't like it, the enhancement talent?
I loved everything about my time in wrestling. I have no regrets, no bitterness towards it. Anything I didn't accomplish is 100% my own fault. And I've told the story hundreds of times again that I was given 4 chances by Dusty Rhodes and WCW to do more. And like Jenna Jameson, I blew them all. Oh, that was a good one. Pulled out of left field.
You got me on that one.
Most people are like, this is Jenna Jameson. Okay, Marilyn Chambers. That's a better reference anyways.
I don't know that. I don't know the second one that you need. I know Jenna Jameson.
My God.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to.
A lot to talk about after. What happened? If you don't, what did you do that you blew? I guess.
It's what I didn't do, because every time Dusty brought, I was supposed to be Tex Slazenger originally.
Really?
Become Dennis Knight, who again I love Dennis. He's a good friend. I've known him for years. We honored him at our last Legends lunch. But I was the original idea for Tex Slazenger, but I hurt my knee. In that case, it wasn't my fault. So there was 4 times, but 3 times I blew it. You could say 4 times I blew it because I blew my knee out. There, I did it again. But anyways, that was, and I didn't even know that at the time. I was standing behind the curtain with Barry Windham and just watching a match. Tex and Mark or Shanghai, however you want to refer to him, were in a match, and Barry goes, "Bob, you were supposed to be Tex." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, you hurt your knee, and we had to find someone else," which is how the business works, right? No one's going to wait around, especially a loser. And I go, "Well, we got to wait till Bob gets better." No, we just go on,
Yeah.
But the other times, it was all Dusty would always tell me after he would tell me what he had in mind to get in better shape. And I would always say, okay. And then, like the addiction to Mountain Dew, I drank too much and I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
So
the opportunities went by. Like, you would give me an opportunity, I'd blow it. You'd bring another opportunity to me, I'd blow it. You bring another. Me and a guy named Joe Cruz were supposed to be the new assassins, and we were going to be managed by Jody Hamilton as the original assassin. Even went to the power plant with DDP and Jody to learn different techniques of old school tag teaming and stuff. But it all resulted in getting in better shape, that I never did. I think I liken it to perhaps I was complacent. I had no problem with my spot. Maybe I was afraid of success. Or maybe I was just an idiot who had too many concussions. I'm blaming it on the concussions. Everybody else does. If I murder my family, concussions.
So you
for Chris Benoit.
You love this whole concussion thing right now. You do.
Even though what Chris Benoit did is not true. I mean, he murdered his family, but it had nothing to do with concussions. You can kiss my ass if you don't think that's true.
Yeah. No, I do. Is there somebody in the business that even now, I guess, that you, if you could, you would have wished you had a match with?
I always wanted to work with Shawn Michaels. Never got certain people back in those. I would have loved to work with Shawn Michaels because he's one of the best ever. Would have loved to work with Terry Taylor, and my favorite wrestler of all time, I never got to actually work with, Terry Funk. Now, I don't think I would have wanted to work with Terry Funk on TV, because I remember I was in Florida with him the night before he went to Nashville to beat up Flair.
Okay.
He was in Florida here wrestling Dusty. Maybe it was 2 nights before, but he was in Florida here wrestling Dusty Rhodes in a bunkhouse match, and then he was going to go to the, do that. And I was talking to him. I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll get to work with you. He goes, Bob, I don't like to work with people that I know and like on TV. So that instantly meant, oh, well, that's probably a good thing I didn't work with him.
Michaels, do you consider Flair considers Michaels the greatest wrestler to walk the face of the earth? Are you on that same page then, essentially, since you want to work with him?
Yeah, I would say one of. I don't think there's such thing as the greatest because everything's subjective, everything's opinionated. Everybody, there's some people who think you could have somebody sitting in a bar right now, gathered together with his friends. They're all drinking, having a good time, and he stands up and he goes, "God damn it, the Big Show's the greatest wrestler ever." And there's people that would be going, "You're nuts." So that it's all matter of an opinion. So,
but there's also people who would be like, yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Exactly, because they're nuts. But no, Shawn's definitely one of the greatest of all time, no doubt. Anybody who wouldn't see that. I mean, you can hate Shawn all you want. You can believe the stories. And I like to tell that story too. I know Shawn had his issues, and certain people have issues with him. But in the day I was in WWE, whatever, he was cool as crap to me. He was just a guy who walked around happy-go-lucky. But you know who wasn't cool? Bret Hart. Bret Hart wasn't cool. He walked around like he was miserable, like he thought he was better than everybody else. Ego the size of Manhattan. So suck on that, people who like to hear the other story.
Yeah, and this is from somebody who's been behind that curtain and knows. So,
again, like anything, everybody has different experiences. People say, "Oh, Vader was a cuddly teddy bear." Okay, fine. But he wasn't to everybody,
Right. How much, because there was a while, just dealing with some independents up here, how much drama was behind the curtain in your years? Because I know there was a lot of fighting, and then it kind of petered off, and it picked back up around here a little bit behind, and now everybody's a happy family. It's kind of the roller coaster of wrestling, though, right?
I'll be honest with you. I never seen any fights. Like, there was a few. I wish I was there with the day Paul Orndorff beat up Vader. My God, of all the times not to be there. I mean, gee. But I never saw it. And from my point of view, there was no drama at all. But I also was a lower echelon guy. I also didn't have an ego. I was there to have fun. I did what I was told. I showed up on time. I didn't cause trouble. So if I felt like I flew under the radar, I wasn't one of those guys that got ribbed, which is great. Maybe they didn't like me enough to rib me. Fine. I don't want to be ribbed. I don't want to be Mr. Fuji, who was like one of the biggest assholes in wrestling when it comes to ribs. I don't want to be part of that. And I'm glad I wasn't.
Yeah. Is there a match, like a stipulation match, that you wish you would have done? Maybe I don't. What the hell is coming back? Where Cornette guys, there's a scaffold match coming up at some point for something that I'm shocked that they're bringing that back, or anything new that you were like, damn, I wish that was around. That I could have been in, because I know you were in the War Games match.
I wasn't like a War Games. No, what do you mean? Like,
you were at the War Games you were at the War Games pay-per-view, weren't you?
Well, I was at the
not in the match.
Scott Hall.
I
wrestled Scott Hall at the Great American Bash '87 at the Orange Bowl in Miami. The main event was, I think it was the second War Games at that time.
Yeah,
I wasn't in the War Games.
I didn't mean in the War Games. That I misspoke. No. I know that. But was there a stipulation match that you wish you could have done, or did you have stipulations matches on the indies that you're like, man, I really love having these, just kind of like stupid, silly matches, like the Chamber of Horrors match or something like that?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I had all kinds of matches on the indies, like, Texas Death matches, chain matches, dollar collar matches, tape fairs, cage matches. So, did all that on the indies. And you go back to like who my all-time, who you want to know who the greatest wrestler I ever worked with, though? I know that's a different subject, but I always like to bring it up. The greatest wrestler I've ever worked with was Dean Malenko.
Because?
Because he was.
Well, I didn't know if there was another longer story. Yes, he was. Yeah, well, he had his dad. I agree. Literally the man of 1,000 holes. I love how they played that up, but I won't disagree with you there. He is the technician.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I had matches with him that were not TV matches. Well, I had TV matches with him too, but they were longer. Your average TV match, 5-7 minutes, whatever. And I worked with Dean from the beginning because he would come to the school and train with us, and the great Malenko would do shows throughout the years, so the students had would get experience in front of crowds. And he also had several short-lived television shows that he put together, and I always got to work with Dean a lot on those. And when you work with somebody for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you know a lot better how good they are than if you're just going in there for 5 minutes. And I worked with some of the greatest of all time, and that doesn't take anything away from them. But I had matches with Dean that were like actual matches, I'll say.
Right.
Like in 1989, I was the Masked Superstar here in Florida for a show called Suncoast Pro Wrestling that the great Malenko had put together with another guy named Henry Raines. And I was the top heel, and Dean was the top babyface. So we had all kinds of matches, on the TV show and at the little house shows we would do. So again, you get a great idea of how good someone's. And again, Dean, perfect timing, light as a feather, smooth as silk, unbelievable guy. He could drop kick you off the top rope, and the only pain you would feel is the bump you took from the drop kick. That's how good he was.
I'm glad you brought up the Masked Superstar, because you were the Masked Superstar 2 for a while. How did that come about?
Just like Jimmy Backlund. Malenko called me one day and he said, Bob, we want to start this TV show called Suncoast Wrestling. I want you to be the Masked Superstar. And I said, okay. And I got a lot of flack for that over the years from different people. Oh, you stole Bill Eadie's gimmick. No. First of all, the great Malenko is the one who trained Bill Eadie and was his manager back in the 70s as the Masked Superstar. But my mentor, my friend, my father figure outside of my real father, I'm adopted, so you shouldn't say real father. My real father must have abandoned me. Uh-oh. I don't know. I was a kid. But the point is, Malenko called me, asked me to do it, and I would definitely say yes because I would do anything Malenko asked. Right. And it was TV. We got paid huge money. Not really. You know what I got paid for those shows? They ran for about 3 years. I got paid $20 a show in all the wrestling magazines I could get because the guy who owned the show, who had the money behind the show, Henry Raines, owned a comic book store in the area that we did the TV. And my idea was I'd get $20 for the show. And he also got in all the wrestling magazines every month. And back in those days, they had magazines like crazy.
They had a million of them.
I'd just go in and get every magazine every month. That was my pay.
It's a good. Now people want those. Do you still have those magazines? People want those. You can start.
Well, I got over 2,000 old wrestling magazines I'm trying to get rid of.
Selling those, yeah. Holy shit, you're going to have an eBay store shortly.
Well, I sell stuff on eBay all the time. Although, I'm pissed off because 2 days in a row I've scheduled a package to be picked up, and it's still sitting here.
See how I bring that right back around? Yeah, that wasn't even on the podcast, but I bring that right back around. Right.
Where was I going with this? I forgot.
Working with Dean, and essentially the question I got out of it of how did you become the Masked Superstar?
Right, and the point about that was during that time though I was still doing WCW, I was still doing independent shows. You're doing all that stuff. People think just because you're doing TV, that's all you're doing. You're just this guy on TV. But us guys worked all the time in those days. We'd leave on a Sunday, do the TVs, get back on a Thursday, and work Friday, Saturday. Again, indie shows. And there were times when I was at WCW where I couldn't do the Masked Superstar thing, and they would just figure out a way I was somewhere else. One morning, there used to be a show out of Orlando called IWF, I think. It was ran by Eddie Mansfield in the early 90s.
That's a name. Wow.
I love Eddie. Eddie's a great guy. So if you were going to say something bad,
no,
he's a friend.
No. That's just a name a lot of people in wrestling just think, but yeah.
Yeah. I've known Eddie for a long time. He used me on those shows as the Punisher, but I wore the same mask I wore as the Superstar. And just as a short yet kind of fun story in the fact that very few people might be able to claim this, was at 7 a.m. the IWF show ran. 8 a.m., the Suncoast Pro Wrestling Show ran it. At 9 a.m., WCW Pro ran. And one morning, I was the Punisher on the IWF, Superstar on Suncoast, Bob Cook on Pro, all the same Saturday morning, wearing the same outfit on each show, except in WCW, I didn't have the mask on.
No shit. So you Rick Rude before Rick Rude.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? And they were all taped different, because none of it was live. So.
Right.
But it's just one of those coincidences where, 3 different shows, 3 different characters, if you will, wearing the same outfit. And on the Suncoast show, I won, and the other 2 I lost. So hey, 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
Yeah, there's a song like that, isn't it? 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
And probably for all those shows together, I made maybe $300.
Oh man, see, and I don't like talking money because I don't. It's not my business or anything. But when you guys, like Barry talked a little money with us, Brian talked a little money with us about the figures that he got screwed over with, and now you're talking a little bit. I know you had like the time of your life, you loved it. But wrestling's brutal, like it. And I know it was a different era too. That milk wasn't $25 a gallon, but. Shit, that still doesn't. That didn't. How did you feed your family? How did you feed yourself?
My wife always had a good job, which allowed me to pretend to be a wrestler, or convince myself that I was a wrestler.
Okay.
But I survived. We did okay.
Right. You're crazy as hell right now.
We were on the road all the time. We were on the road all the time. Again, to me, it was just a blast. And with WCW and WWF, even though I was only there for about a year, they paid for all your trains, your airfare, hotels, and WCW wouldn't fly us, but they would pay for our rent-a-car, gas, whatever.
Real quick, a couple more. Where was like your favorite places to go that you knew that, hey, when I head to town X, I can't wait because they have an awesome sub here? Outside of wrestling, was there places that you like to go because you liked being at that town for a little bit?
Not especially. Not for any reason other than the arenas. Like wrestling at the Mid-South Coliseum was as cool as it gets. There was a place here in Florida that's no longer here called the Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg, which was, to me, it was our Madison Square Garden. It was like the Garden, kind of round and looked kind of like the Garden. Not as big, though, like half the size, only held 8,000 or 10,000. Those are my favorite places to wrestle in. Never really had particularly favorite town. I used to hit every Toys R Us on the way to shows, and I used to know where every Toys R Us was within a WCW radius of wherever we went. And anybody that traveled with me knew that if we're going with Bob, we're stopping at Toys R Us.
For figures? For what?
Yeah, figures. I was always a big, as a kid, when I was in the 70s, obviously they didn't have wrestling figures. But I used my Muhammad Ali figures and Ken Norton and Big Jim figures as wrestlers and made a ring out of, plywood and dollies and whatever. And, yeah.
So
when they came out with wrestling,
go ahead.
When they came out with wrestling figures, I was like, holy crap, these are cool, So I had to collect them. And I don't have as many as I used to, but one time I had all the AWA Remcos, all the LJNs, all the Hasbros. And, in the late 90s when wrestling had that big boom period, in the early 2000s, I sold a lot of that for good money. Not as much money as you'd make today if I'd have saved them. But
yeah, no shit. I had all the Remcos. I bought them at Hills in New York because there's shit around here. So we had to travel to New York to get them. And they were my first wrestlers before the LJNs or anything. They were amazing. The LJNs came and I'm like, I'll get rid of these. The LJNs are more realistic, and I wish I would have saved them because holy hell, I look now and I'm like, there's retirement on some of these. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like I thought I was doing good when I sold my King Harley Race mint in a package for like $800 20 years ago. It'd be worth a lot more now, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I just always loved action figures, and I don't collect them as much as I used to. I still like once in a while to get, if it's something like they got a new Ultimate Hulk Hogan and Mr. T coming out based on WrestleMania 1. They look fantastic. Guess who's got to have them?
You.
An overweight, has been, never was been 58-year-old Bob Cook. That's who has to have them.
Yeah, that's where I do limit myself a little bit, because if I start, like, I like those little Funko Pop things. Like, they're so ugly looking that they're cool. But if I get one, then I find an excuse to get another one, and then I have to find an excuse to get another one, and then my wife throws me out of the house because then I will get them all. And some of them are like CM Punk and AJ Lee's are already in the thousands.
Jeez, I used to be that way with my figures. I still have lots of figures mint in the package that I just have in boxes from the 90s and 2000s that I don't want anymore. And I'm not into the Funkos. I do have 3 Funkos, and they happen to be, are you listening? The God on Earth, Evel Knievel. Those are the only ones I have.
Of course. Nice.
Well, I also have a Funko of Jerry Lawler and the guy from the Blacklist, Raymond Reddington, because someone gave them to me. So,
all right, this is a big question, and you have a little youngster meeting you up somewhere, and they want to know advice about wrestling business. What do you tell them?
Do the opposite of what Bob Cook did. When I was younger, like Mark Merrow, I'm the one who gave Mark Merrow like to go train at the Great Malenko. We met him in a gym we used to train at, and he heard that we were wrestlers and he wanted to know how to get in the business. So, sent him to Great Malenko. And then I'm the one that got him in WCW. But I would never discourage anybody from doing it. I might do it in a jokey way, like, don't do, Like, I remember the guy I was talking about, Rick Ryder,
Mm-hmm.
First time I met Rick was at a person's house. I won't say his name because I don't talk to him anymore. But I met him at this guy's house, and he had one of those halos because he just had neck surgery. Those things that keep your head from moving. And he's like, get a chair. And he's like, yeah, I want to get in the wrestling business. And I'm like, what? But it's funny. And Rick had went to another show, and I think it was Chick Donovan. You know who Chick Donovan is?
No.
I mean, he's a guy who's been around for years. Did not like a Ric Flair game, but he looked kind of like Ric Flair. Great body, blonde hair. Still wrestles, and he's in his 70s. But he's at the shows in St. Pete, and Rick's like asking about getting a wrestling business, and Chick asks him, he goes, "Are you married?" "Yeah." "Well, you won't be." He goes, "You got back problems?" "No." "Well, you will have." "You got a job?" "Well, you'll lose it." This like telling him all this bad stuff.
But he's being real, though. He's being honest with them, right?
Yeah, of course. But now I wouldn't discourage anybody. I'd just say put everything you got into it, and learn how to throw a punch just as important as knowing how to do a headlock, in my opinion. Like, if you can practice a moonsault 100 times and not hurt a guy and make it look good, then you can practice a punch 100 times, not hurt a guy, and make it look good, if you care. But nobody cares anymore. It's not important.
I love that. You're right, because
and that's that.
They will practice all their high spots, and I still am a mark. I will watch the 40 hours of wrestling that's on TV, usually on fast motion. I don't listen to the commentators much, but I will watch it. They'll practice their high spots, but sometimes the headlock looks like they're throwing a freaking garbage bag out of the ring, and it looks bad. Like the basics they're lacking on.
Yeah, sometimes it's the simplest, smallest things that make the biggest difference. Like, if you're trying to create some illusion that I hate you and you hate me, and they go out and have a fight, and they're doing all this stuff, but the punches look like crap, instantly you're taken out of the match because it's not believable. If you can get the people into the match and your punches look crisp and everything else goes along, it makes it's so much better.
Yeah. Are you working with CWF in Florida? Like behind the scenes, or just helping out?
I know the guy who runs it, and obviously the other people we've known forever, Cuban Assassin, Ricky Santana, Hell Jeffrey, and other guys. And I'd like to do more if I could with him. And he's given me, you can do this, do that, but I don't know. But I was at their show last Saturday. It was a good show, had a nice turnout.
Yeah.
It's a slow build, it's a really hard thing to try to get. You're trying to appeal to an audience that's no longer there, not because they don't want to be there, because they're mostly dead. You know what I mean? I mean, Florida wrestling's been dead 35 years. So, who you're appealing to,
It's a different audience. It's my son now that you're trying to grab, essentially.
There's a few old guys still around, but I'm not going to wrestling shows.
No. All right, this is your time. Do say whatever you want. You do have some merch on Pro Wrestling Tees, right?
Yeah, Pro Wrestling Tees. I think it's, you type in Bob Cook, you can find it, or the Cooker's Corner, or whatever. Bob Cook probably more likely. But I've sold a few shirts since I opened it, like 100.
Really? Cool.
So I say I'm $999,989,000 short of being a millionaire.
You're almost there. You're almost there.
But yeah, if people would go buy those, I'd appreciate it, because Mountain Dew is not free, especially the new stuff with booze in it.
Yeah, and I still can't wait. I can't wait till it gets to Pennsylvania. Do you have 8x10s or anything that you'd sell, or anything if people find you on Facebook or anything?
No.
Although
I did have a guy recently pay me to sign a bunch of pictures and send them back to him. Okay. If anybody wants to do that, hey, print up some pictures, send them to me, and I'll sign them if you want to pay me.
Yeah.
You didn't pay me a lot, but of course I have a horrible signature. That's the most embarrassing thing. Like if I ever did get paid to be at a comic or a convention or whatever, I got a horrible signature.
Well, you have until November to figure out how to get a good signature.
Yeah, practice. And not only that, like if they ask you to make it out to da-da-da and have it say best punch in the business, and it'd just be it'd be a cluster.
Anything I didn't bring up that you want to talk about? Anything that I kept you long, and I want to let you go play and drink and be merry tonight. But yeah, anything you want to bring up?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Did I leave anybody out? Do I hate anybody? I don't really hate anybody. Put over to Malenko. Also, Joe Malenko. I love Joe Malenko. I don't know.
And hey, anybody want to tell? Hey, you're on my hit list. I'm coming after you tomorrow.
No, I don't think so. My wife doesn't live near me anymore, so I don't know.
All right.
I don't even know where she lives.
That could be a plus too. That could really be a plus. It is a plus, yeah. I hear you. I actually saw her. My kid wrestled for the first time in a long time, 3 months ago, like in November, whenever it was. And she showed up at the show. We didn't say a word to each other. Is he doing a lot more shows now? No. Of course, probably COVID had shit to do with it and everything, but he's not all in like you were?
No, he doesn't wrestle hardly at all. That was the first time he'd wrestled in years, and he did it because it was 10 miles from his house, and had the friends there and family.
Yeah. So
everything's changed.
So the lineage of Cooks are done.
Yeah. Thankfully for the wrestling business. But to me, wrestling's not the same, obviously.
No.
In my day, I mean, most of us got along. I didn't see a lot of ego in the dressing room. You just had a good time. You were appreciative of being there, and just couldn't wait to get to the next show. And the shows I go to now, I mean, there's so much stuff going on in the dressing room. Just this guy hates that guy, and who needs that drama?
Yeah. All right, Bob, I'll let you go. Thank you for stopping by Can Crushers. It was a blast having you on, talking about some of my childhood and to hear some of these great stories. I'd love to grab you again and actually deep dive into some of these crazier stories and just talk again. This was fun for me.
Anytime. I got no life, but you better make it quick because you never know when those bombs are going to drop.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Cooker Bob Cook. Man, that was a fun interview. Like I said, this interview was for me to go back into childhood and to hear some stories about the great Malenko, and the Barry Horowitz story to start off the podcast was great. I just pictured Barry and Bob sitting in between two repo men with a gun sitting on a dashboard, and as you call it, sitting in the middle of everybody sitting bitch, and them just getting squirrely thinking, we better tell them we're wrestlers. That's crazy. But just to hear everything that he has gone through, and you hear the love of wrestling that Bob has, and still has for, I want to say yesteryear wrestling, maybe not present day, but it's there. It really is there. And Wow. Bob's going to come back on. We're going to hear some more maybe in-depth stories, a couple more road stories that we get to hear from. And I do like how we started off talking about Bob's hero, Evel Knievel. So that means a lot that he opened up about knowing Evel and just wanting to essentially be like Evel and the things that he does and creating the video games and everything. That's cool. To see this interview was really, really cool nostalgia for me to sit back and just listen to Bob talk about NWA/WCW, WWF, just to hear these stories about the Steiners and, oh man, these are the ones I love. I really enjoyed this. And maybe, just maybe, there's going to be a cool ass pair of wrestling boots sitting in Can Crusher Studio real soon. I'm excited about this. Hopefully we can work some things out that I can get a pair of these Terry Funk boots, George South boots, Bob Cook boots to have in the studio. You sure as shit know I'll be wearing them around the house, and then the family will be annoyed with me. But that's the way it rolls. All right, guys, another great interview. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that cool stuff on everywhere that our podcasts are, iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and Spotify. You guys know where they are. Send us an email at cancrusher69@gmail.com. See if there's somebody else that you'd like us to talk to. Bob's going to come back. I'm telling you that right now. And just let's talk wrestling like this. Let's just have some great interviews. Remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot.